What's up, guys? Thank you so much for your interest in our investment property list. This is going to be super fun. We're always out hunting for deals, and it's like, why aren't we broadcasting this on a bigger scale? I know so many of you just don't quite understand this world yet, so that's why you're sitting on the sidelines, but this is just the best way to invest your money, period. I personally believe that the money that you make in your occupation just needs to go towards buying real estate, because there really is nothing better. You have ridiculous tax breaks. You have depreciation. You have the acceleration, or sorry, the appreciation, I should say. You can accelerate the depreciation. That's a new Trump tax law. I don't like that man, but boy, did he make some laws that benefit real estate investors. Um, so there's just all sorts of benefits to this. And the best thing in the world is if you can get a cash flowing asset. That what I mean by cash flow is that every month you are making money. So your mortgage and whatever costs associated with the property are lower than the rents that you're getting. That means you're positively cash flowing. If you can get that on a monthly basis, and then you get to cash in big time on the appreciation that you'll have when you sell down the road, that's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. So we're going to be sending these out on a weekly basis. We're going to pick like just the best ones. It'll be somewhere around 10 that we'll do. I will do my best to each week like break down the best one that we found that week. So here it goes. And I really hope that me breaking it down like this is going to help you guys understand what we're doing a little more. So let me share my screen here and let's get to it. Hopefully y'all can see my screen. Okay, so the first or the best one that we found here is this guy, 10518 South Avalon Boulevard. Now this is very south. I mean, it's all relative, but it's a good amount below USC. Like USC is gonna be up here. So we're pretty far south. We are also on Avalon is a main street. So things to take under consideration. I really only care about the numbers when it comes to this. And this one's quite interesting. So it is fully occupied. Both units are 3-bed, 2 baths. It was built in 2008, which, by the way, that means that there is not rent control. In LA County, if it was built after 1978, there is not rent control. So as an investor, we love no rent control. As a tenant, of course, we like rent control, but we're approaching this from an investment standpoint here. Okay, so let's just start breaking down the numbers. In case you want to see pictures, they actually don't have pictures of the inside. That's very normal when it's fully tenant occupied. Oftentimes, by the way, the only way you can see the inside of these is by submitting an offer. Now, that scares a lot of first-time investors away, because they're like, what the hell? I'm absolutely not going to write an offer on something I've never seen. You write the offer subject to an interior inspection. And the reason for this is they don't want the tenants' lives, every few hours, like showings, people coming in and coming out. They really only want to disrupt the tenants' lives for people who are very serious about this. And so you prove that you're very serious by taking the time to put an offer together. And if you don't like what you see, you just, you walk away from it. Again, it's written subject to interior inspection. This one, though, it looks like we might be able to get an appointment if we call the agent. It probably is going to be hard. They might do a thing where they try to really just stack showings at like one window or something like that. But anyway, let's get into the numbers, because that's really the point of this whole thing here. So I am using just a very basic online mortgage calculator. And with a lot of this stuff, by the way, this is just very preliminary stuff to get us a general idea of, is this a good investment or is it not a good investment? Obviously, if we're seriously going to pursue this, we're not going to use a mortgage calculator online. We're going to have the lender that's already given you your pre-approval, because that is step number one, is get pre-approved first. We're going to have that lender. We're going to send them the property, him or her the property, and we're going to say, you know, break down the numbers for us. What does our monthly mortgage look like? And let's talk about what your monthly mortgage entails. That's your PITI or pity principal. That basically means like when you pay your principal down, you're actually paying down the ownership of the property itself. So you got your principal, you got your interest. I think everyone knows what interest is. And then taxes, property taxes come out to, in LA County, generally about 1.25% of the total value, which would be the purchase price of the home. That you can split up, divide it by 12, and then just lump it into your mortgage. PITI, oh, insurance is the final I. So your property insurance. We're just kind of going off of $1,000 a year here. That probably needs a little bit of adjustment. We would, again, when we're officially running the numbers, and sometimes people call it underwriting, we would obviously get your insurance broker to give us like the actual quote for that, because you'll see like a lot of this stuff, you know, the margins are not huge, so it really makes it can absolutely make a big difference getting these figures right. But we're going to move forward with what we have here. I kind of like broke it down here for us. So list price is $629. Now, a lot of times when I run the numbers on this, I'm not plugging in the list price, because oftentimes the numbers don't make sense at list. And if you're an investor, you're going to have to get used to probably throwing a lot of offers out and just kind of, you know, writing the offer that makes sense for you from a number standpoint, and just hoping that you can put something together with the seller. Now, this particular property has been on the market 9 days. And so I imagine this one's going to get snatched up quickly, because in LA, it is pretty hard to find deals with numbers like this. A lot of people who invest in LA, they really are only playing an appreciation game. You know, they're okay losing a little bit of money each month because they are confident that when they sell down the road, the property will be worth way more than it currently is. But I want to always be finding deals that cash flow. The ROI might not be great in LA, but I at least need to see some cash flow, or else I'm not going to send it to you. Okay, so let's go back to the numbers here. Oh yeah, and so with the days on market at 9, my point with that is just, you know, it may be unrealistic to think that we could get it for less than that. And it might take more than this. I mean, if I had a client actually wanting to get this, the first thing I would do is call the agent and get a sense of, do you already have offers? Is this going to go above list? You know, because are we being unrealistic running our numbers where we're currently running? Okay. Ooh, let me make a big note here. So the numbers on this, I am doing as if you were not going to live in one of the units. When you're not going to live in one of the units, you can't put less than 20% down, because you're just purely an investor. If you are going to live in one of the units, that really changes the game a lot, because you can put as little as 3 or 3.5% down if you are going to live in one of the units. So that's a huge way to get in the game without, you know, in this example, I think what is our down payment here? Our down payment is 20% of this is 125,800. So that's a decent amount of money. Some of you guys watching this are probably sitting on that amount in the bank, and some of you are like, oh my God, I'm never in my life, I don't see how I'm ever going to be sitting on that amount in the bank. This is unrealistic for me. I will do the next week. I will break this down doing a 3.5% FHA owner occupier version of this. Now, to give you, got my calculator here, to give you perspective on what the down payment would be if this were FHA, and all the numbers here I ran with 20%, but just so you get a sense of what the down payment would look like, that's 22, oh, it's flipped, but 22,000 and change. So that's probably a lot of you are thinking, wow, 22,000, that's something I actually like, maybe not today, but in the near future, I could put that towards a property, compared to 125,000, which is how we're going to be looking at this right now with putting 20% down. Okay, so we really needed to get that little bit out of the way. Monthly rents here, each unit's making $2,300. So monthly rent comes out to $4,600. The mortgage, which, like I said earlier, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Let me just show you that here. I'm just getting it by running this. Your interest rate, by the way, with an investment property is going to be a little bit higher than if it was just like a single family home that you were owner occupying. So even though rates right now, I'm making this video, what's today, September 27th, I think rates are, I don't know, like 3.8 or something like that, so somewhere in that. They went up a little bit last week. They might be a tad higher than that, but they're definitely not 5. And so that's why we're using 5 here. It's a little higher when you get into investment territory. Property tax, I got this number by just doing 1 1/4 of this, and that's per year. Again, that's going to be broken down though and included in your just mortgage figure. Home insurance, again, we're throwing 1,000 out. It could be a little higher than that. I'm not sure. We check with your insurance agent. So, okay. So that's how we got that number there. Now let's go back to our figures. That means that on a monthly basis, we're going to be cash flowing just on the rents and mortgage, $1,160.21. That's pretty damn good for LA. It's rare I find something with a comma there. A lot of other parts of the country, you know, your ROI and your cash flow is you can find that easier. With a 2 to 4 unit in LA, that it's actually hard. Again, a lot of people play an appreciation game. To me, appreciation should just be the big bonus, the cherry on top, but I want this to make sense on a monthly basis. So, okay, let's multiply this figure by 12 months to get our annual cash flow. That's $13,922. And then our ROI, we're going to calculate by taking this annual cash flow figure and dividing it by our acquisition cost. So, and that basically means what does it cost to get this property? So that's the down payment, which we're doing 20%. And in this example, I am not going to include closing costs. We might be able to get the seller to pay for closing costs. That's definitely not unheard of, especially in the investment world. They would probably be somewhere around 10 or 12,000 if I just had to just guess off the top of my head. Again, that's something that we would get an escrow company to give us an official figure for that to estimate it better. But let's just say for this that we're able to get seller to cover our closing costs, which is definitely not unheard of. So that would be 11% ROI here. That's really, really, really good. Really, really, really good. A lot of times the parameters, like I'm looking at 8% or higher. Some people are okay with 6%. But before we get too excited here, I want to go into just other considerations that you really as an investor should be taking into account here. So you're not going to have it rented the whole time. We really need to be budgeting for a vacancy rate. Now it's a little weird with a duplex where if you have 1 unit vacant, like half of your income is choked. The numbers kind of work out a little more predictable or predictably if you're dealing with like a 70 unit where you're just always going to have like a few units like coming and going that are vacant. But you know, they say about 10% is not a bad vacancy rate to figure in. So of our $4,600, 10% of that would be 460. So let's keep this in mind. Maintenance. Now this is a little tricky because if you're listening to like Bigger Pockets or some of the national real estate investor and multifamily investing things, they say that you should be setting aside 1 to 3% of the property's value for your maintenance. Los Angeles, I should say, our properties are just so much more expensive than other parts of the country that just doesn't make sense because, you know, like a roof is a roof. I mean, it might cost a little bit more to put on a new roof in LA, but still we're not talking about land, which is why property values are so expensive in LA. We're talking about, you know, like putting a new water heater in. Like, so anyway, I'm thinking that $250 per month here is a pretty reasonable amount. That comes out to, I believe, $3,000 a year. Let's see, 250 times 12. Yeah, $3,000 a year. I think if you're putting away $3,000 a year, I mean, what, a water heater costs like $1,800. Those are good for like 12 to 15 years. Replacing the roof is probably going to be your most expensive issue. That's probably like $12,000 or so. Depending on the material, roofs should last you about 30 years or so. So if we're setting aside $3,000 a year, I think that's going to be good. And then of course you're going to have like little things here and there, like throw a handyman, $100 for this, for that, a plumber. But I still think we're pretty conservative with that. So taking all that into consideration, when we subtract these two numbers from this number up here, where we weren't taking vacancy or maintenance, we're looking at about $450 per month of cash flow. Now that's not a big number by any means, but if you're just looking for a place to park your money, like you're going to be, I mean, think of it like a dividend from a stock. You're going to be getting this plus the tax benefits that you'll have with the depreciation, the interest, all that stuff. It really, really makes a big difference. And then again, especially in Los Angeles, this is an appreciation play as well. You're only going to get rid of this when it makes a lot of sense to do this. Maybe in 4 years, you sell and you cash out, and then you can do a 1031 exchange where you don't pay taxes on your gains. You just roll it over into your next one. And then if you just theoretically 1031 exchange the whole rest of your life, and you just go up and up and up in the world, you're playing real life Monopoly, and you're not paying taxes on your real estate gains. I mean, the tax law really, really is set up to favor property investors. It's kind of insane. My mentor, actually, he got started, he bought FHA. I think he only ended up putting like $3,000 or $4,000 down. Just his story is crazy. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. He gets his first triplex in Compton, put hardly anything down, sold it. I think he cash flowed okay on it, but he sold it in like 3 or 4 years and made like 200 grand on it. And then he took that 200 grand and then got, I think it was like a 16 unit next, and then now he's, investing solely out of state in much bigger apartment complexes. And that's the goal, in my opinion. That's where I'm heading, but we have to get started somewhere. And so I think that like starting with a 2 to 4 unit makes so much sense. And again, it could either be 20% if you're not going to live in it and it's just purely an investment, or if you're going to live in it, and you don't have to live in it forever. I think like 6 months to a year is really all you're supposed to be in there. So you can think about it too as like almost a sacrifice, where like, for example, if I was looking at this for myself, this is a lot further south than makes sense for me. I would probably be looking at this. It would have to be a little bit closer, like maybe more like the USC area, just because I do so much in, downtown and the west side and all that stuff. But, if I'm thinking of it as like, I'm not going to love living in this place. It's not going to be quite as nice as I want it to be. It's not quite the neighborhood I want it to be. But I can only this allows me to only put 3.5% down to do that. And I'm just making that commitment to my future, and think of it as a sacrifice to a degree for, like a year tops, like at 30 years old. Why not? Why the hell not? And, then I can cash out on it a few years later, like my mentor did. Take my, he had like 200 grand that he put into his next investment. That's super cool. Okay, so let's go back to the numbers here. So this is what we're looking at from a monthly cash flow when we take these conservative considerations into account. Annually, we're looking at 5,400 and change. So our ROI, which again, we're just doing the same thing up here, but instead of this number, we're using this number, comes out to 4.3. Now 4.3 is not exciting, but again, this is like pretty hyper conservative here. Realistically, it's going to be somewhere between these numbers, because this is not really taking these into consideration, and these are pretty conservatively taking it in. So yeah, that's what this one looks like. I hope that makes sense to you guys. real quick over here, you might hear people talk about pro forma. Now, this agent didn't change his projected rent from the actual rent. So he's just saying that basically the actual rent is what market value is for this. But a lot of times you'll see the number over here being a lot higher than the number here. And it's also called pro forma. That basically means like what they are suggesting market rent rates would be. And then of course you have to take into account, okay, well, you know, how hard would it be for me to get market rate tenants in there? Is there rent control? If there is, the only way to get a tenant out is to owner occupy and pay them relocation fees. If there's not rent control, there's a lot of things you can do. You can just raise the rents, basically. And again, this one, just off the top of my head, that far south for a 3.2, this probably is pretty close to market. And again, we haven't seen the inside. I'm not expecting the inside to be super nice and updated. So it does seem like this is great because you actually have tenants in here that are paying, you know, market rent. And if you can get it for list price, you know, the numbers make sense. And you have to hunt for a lot of these. My buddy, Chris on my team, phenomenal agent. He kind of did the preliminary round of research on this. And he searched very far and wide to put this list together for us. So big shout out to Chris. Thank you for that. But yeah, like it's not easy to find these, but you know, we dig for these and we find them, and we would love to educate you guys on the process. If you're not ready now, I'm so, like a lot of you guys said, I'm nowhere near ready, but I just want to learn. And that's super, super, super cool. Like we are here to help. So anyway, I hope that made sense. This went way longer than I thought it would, but I hope you found value and hit me up with your questions. All right. Let me see how I can get the heck out of my Zoom record here. All right. Stop.